I'm Dave Alvin, and this is Finding the Blues. Yeah, I'm a blues player, if you hand me a guitar and any kind of song, in any kind of style, and tell me to take a solo, it's going to come out sounding somewhere between Lightnin' Hopkins and Johnny Guitar Watson. That's just the way I naturally play guitar. As a songwriter, I write in a variety of genres and all that, but all said and done, I'm basically a blues guitar player. When I started writing songs for the Blasters, I was trying to write songs in general that were about things that I had seen, and part of my world. When I was a kid, one of the great things I learned when my brother Phil and I and our friends, Big Joe Turner and T-Bone Walker and Eddie Clean Ed Vincent or Lee Allen or Lightnin' Hopkins, we literally followed these guys around, whether they were playing the Ash Grove or whether they were the York Club, off of Florence, or whether they were playing in a high school gymnasium in Pico Rivera. We would go to the gigs. And one of the things that I learned, especially after I got to know them and all that, was that I could never be them. Because when you're a kid, you want to be like your heroes. You want to dress like your heroes and talk like your heroes. And I learned, fairly early on, as much as I loved them and loved their music, I had to figure out a way of doing my own blues. So when I started writing songs for the Blasters, I started saying, okay, let's mix things up. Let's take sort of the things that we had learned from the blues guys when we were little kids, and I wanted to mix it in with things that I learned from poets, small press alternative poets like Charles Bukowski and Gerald Laughlin and people like that, and other literary things from American literature, both underground and overground, and mix that in with the blues, and then mix in other types of American folk music, whether it was Cajun or honky-tonk music or hillbilly music or Norteño music. Just mix it all together. The thing about American music or American folk music is it's all connected by certain, really two strands connect everything. Spiritual music on one hand, and the other thing that connects all the music, whether we're talking about string bands in northern Georgia from the 1920s, or whether you're talking about surf bands, or whether you're talking about Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie creating bebop in the late 40s, or whether you're talking about the White Stripes, or whether you're talking about Western swing or Muddy Waters. The thing that connects all those types of music is the blues form. I don't mean a style of blues. I don't mean Chicago blues. I don't mean Texas blues, West Coast blues, Piedmont blues. Not styles. It's the form that connects it. And that way, if you put Miles Davis in a room with the Allman Brothers Band, Hank Williams, and Little Walter, and you put them all in a room, I know what they're going to play. First, somebody's going to say, okay, let's do a blues in B flat. And that's what they'll play. And that's what connects all of America's, folk musics. So for the Blasters, who were basically, a blues R&B band, but when I started writing the songs, I thought, okay, we can incorporate everything else. And then in my solo careers, it's gone on, it's just been even more. We can incorporate, acoustic folk music, we can incorporate electric rock and roll or electric blues or whatever, because it's all the same music, it's all connected by the blues. It's all the same chords, So whether they're acoustic or whether they're electric, it's all the same chords. I really only write on acoustic guitar. Sometimes you'll take a new song into the band, and you'll play it, and you'll go home and rewrite something or change the groove or something. But in general, no, I just sit and sometimes I put the acoustic guitar up to my ear and pretend it's an electric and bang on it if it's going to be that kind of song. Yeah. I've written a couple songs, walking to the grocery store to get cigarettes or to the hamburger place to get a hamburger, and you leave the house without a song, you come back 50 minutes later and you got a song. Yeah, well, I like co-writing. The right people, it can spur you on. Sometimes, when you write alone, it gets lonely, and some songs, you can get right to the point alone. And other songs, you can go someplace maybe you didn't think you would go when you co-write. So with both David Hidalgo and Luis Perez from Lobos, David had come up with some music, and they had wanted me to sing with David on their album, The Ride. They were getting, Bobby Womack and Mavis Staples and Richard Thompson and Tom Waits and people like that to all be on it. And so I was honored, and I just thought, Louis and I got together here and just sat around and figured, well, we've known each other a long time and gone through changes of losing people they love and drifting apart from people, not out of any kind of malice or anything, just that's just the way life is. And so we wrote a song about how, you know, all the people you love are still alive, all your friends are still there with you, you know, in some ways. And so we were just in the right place at the right time, you know, mentally right, exactly at the same place. So it was easy to write. With Rod, you know, Rod wanted to write a song about a transistor radio, and I was working on a poem about transistor radios, and so it's just really, yeah, sometimes you get to co-write with people, or you get together to co-write and you just sit around and talk about the Lakers or something, or you talk about bad gigs, and you have a great time but no song. Other times, you and the right person at the right time, and you leave and you have a pretty good song. Tom Russell and I write epics together. You know, we're both partial to epics on our own, but yeah, when we get together, we turn on the epic meter. There's a song that Tom and I wrote called Rio Grande, and it's typical with Tom and me, you know, it's his version is much musically entirely different, and I changed a bunch of lines, and he had changed lines to fit his view of the song, and so they're almost 100% different. There's also a song that I wrote with a great young singer named Shanna McNally. So we wrote sort of a gospel blues, you know, called Sinful Daughter. This record is mainly electric. There's a couple acoustic things, but it's mainly electric. And I've always, I like recording live. And so Blackjack David, King of California, those records were basically live. You know, the vocals and guitar were done at the same time, and so what you're hearing is what went down. But it's difficult to do with electric, you know, those are acoustic records mainly, and it's difficult to do with electric guitar because you get the bleed. You know, you want to have your amp right next to you. You don't want to have it a mile away in a room sequestered, you know. And so Greg Lease found a great little studio where we did the basic tracks just over in Hollywood. And it was an old Foley studio from the 40s, and it's a room about the size of Sun Studios. And a kid named Craig Adams is the engineer, and he's a guitar player, and he's not afraid of amplifiers. So the amps were there in the room with us. I mean, I could lean my arm on my guitar amplifier. I haven't been able to do that on just about any of my solo records because of the vocals. And the drums were as far away from me as you. The bass player was right there, Bob Glob and Don Heffington, you know. And we basically cut the record that way, you know. The acoustic tracks we did at a different studio. And then we did the sweetening, but the guitar solos, all that stuff, some of the vocals, they're all live. The drums, all live, bass, all live, Greg Lease's guitar parts, pretty much all live. And, you know, Neil Young's been recording that way for years, and it's a great way to record. It's just that, in general, it costs a lot of money, you know, because if you screw up, you got to do another take and do another take and do another take. And so one of the great things about the sort of digital revolution is that in some ways, as digital as the word implies, it's digital and it's scary because it's so space age. On the other hand, you can go back to doing things the Sun Records way or the Chess Records way. You can actually record live and fix things when you screw up. You can say, okay, let's go do another, because it's cheap and you got 8 million tracks. So this record was getting close to that thing of capturing what happens live, capturing it on a record. The main problem for acts like me is it's a money issue. You know, and you know, I'm starting to figure out how to work the money end. For example, like this new record is the first record I own, because I just got tired of not owning the records. And so, you know what I did? I begged and borrowed to own the record. And so I may have to beg and borrow to do a DVD. There is a guy that's interested, you know, totally off the record, and so we'll see what happens. Because, yeah, the Guilty Men are a great band, and I would like to get that documented on DVD somehow before I'm dead. We have people that come to live shows, and then they want to go buy a record, and they say to me, well, what do you got that sounds like just what I heard? Oh, nothing. So I was like, okay, let's do live records. So people that like that, you know, because playing live is actually my favorite thing to do. You know, writing songs, being in the studio, whatever, that's all fun. It's all great. I love playing live music. I love the interaction. You go someplace mentally, you know, sort of what the song, The Ash Grove, is about, is a little bit of what happens when you're on stages. You know, if it's the right night, the right gig, the right audience, you're in the right mood, time totally stand still, and you know, I'm back at the Ashgrove, and Big Joe Turner's alive. My parents are alive. I'm 13 years old. I'm 87 years old. I'm living in the moment. I'm living in no time at all, and that's why I love playing live. You know, because when you're playing live, it's everything you've ever done, and everyone you've ever known. It's all, they're all on that stage at that moment.
Did you sit? Good girl. Speak. Come on. Good girl. Good girl.